let's begin. So this is PowerPoint presentation. Because we had no code just before this, so I just wanted to clarify. Alright, so my topic is Micro-Frontend for large application. Deliberately I mentioned as a large application because the term itself looks fascinating, and not everything that looks fascinating looks really worthful if we start applying, especially in the development, right? So I think that is why I scoped it for the large application. I think it's a big paragraph. Maybe don't waste your time reading all that. But what I want to mention is that, yeah, I like to contribute. I believe in making world better by, creating useful software, useful applications, web application primarily. So this is my job, and I have been in this industry from past 15 years. So I have worked on JavaScript stacks, all front end and the back-end code using the JavaScript. I have been working these years, and then these are the recent achievements that I have. Well, coming back to the topic itself, I think we always say let's start with the why part. So I did the same. I started with the why part, saying why micro-frontends. So I think let's look at the code. I think we all have been working in this industry from quite a long time. Maybe, except a couple of us, maybe most of us have worked for more than like 5-6 years. And some of us are aspiring architects, some of us are already architects, and some of us are much beyond architect. I don't know what is that, but yes, I think this term is very clear that I wanted to put it that, don't try to make the best possible thing. Say that, you're doing something best in the first go itself. Have the emergent, evolved approach. And that is why I feel the micro-frontend is also one of the approach there, right? So coming back to the points here that, we all have been hearing, not just hearing, I think we have experienced the microservices which have been integrated at the API level. We know that, there are different services, then you have container, you talk to the container, and then they sort of like decide which one to, really call, and finally you have the response from that particular service. So it's not a new terminology as such, but what was missing as such was in the front end, we always thought that, let's use a monolithic approach where we do things like a big front end stuff, and then let backend decide, like, we use the REST API, we call, and the things are sorted. But what about, like, when more and more logics are being used in the client side nowadays? I think it's not like the old world where, everything had been written in the backend, and the front end had to do a little stuff, maybe just like, being a representational layer or presentational layer. I think it has moved quite far from that kind of thinking. So this is where we also like to adopt. And also when we talk about the micro-frontend, we always say that, let's decouple the code. So let's use the same approach here as well. Like, when we have multiple good frameworks library out here, why do we restrict ourselves to React, or let's say Vue or Angular or Flubber or whatsoever? There are many, right? So today's best framework may not be the best framework 10 years down the line, unless until they are doing consistently, good to meet the requirement of the customer, right? So that's the point here, right? third thing is like, breaking large software into smaller chunks. It's not a new word or the sentence for us. Basically, the benefit, one of the another benefit of this would be also that the teams can work independently. They need not to really do a lot of handovers and KT and other stuff. Basically, they can work independently. They can focus on their own requirement, develop things on their own, and then at the end of the day, they can just publish their stuff. And we have one container which basically fulfills the entire view or the layout when it comes to front end. I think there are few popular companies which have already implemented Micro-Frontend. So this is something that I came across when I was just doing a little bit of research. So just to boost up my energy also, I mentioned this. So Spotify has an open table, IKEA and Sky Scanner. I think these are all popular ones. We have been knowing these. So that's about Y part, guys. I think this is quite familiar to all of us. I think this is how emergent approach, you could say, that has been followed maybe in a few years from monolithic, then having this front end and back end thing. Then you have the microservices where you have the microservices being followed at the back end, basically here, right? Okay, so the same thing. What I did is that let's do the same replica of it in the front end as well. When I say services, it's not exactly the services. It's basically the presentation that we care, right? In the front end. But the idea is very simple, that we do that context mapping, clear context mapping. So I think some of you must have heard of this domain-driven design, where you have this term used as context mapping. So I think the thing is, when you know what is your subdomain, it becomes quite easy for you to decide whether to go with the micro-frontend or use the, any single page application, popular single page application out here, right? You don't have to really stick to one particular goal. It is just that one add-on thing that you might be knowing, which can be helpful in future. So what is micro-frontend? Actually, definitely it's not a replacement of single page application, because I have worked on it and I don't want it to replace as well. But yes, it's not a replacement of single page application. It's not like one size fits all model. You can't say that this is the only model that can be used and this is the well proven and this is the only thing to move forward. It's not that way. So what happens is that we spoke about few of the companies that have adopted this micro-frontend. The primary reason of them was that when their business grew, the customer base grew, the scalability and maintainability, all these things became one of the major concern for them. I think at that point of time they decided that why not to adopt this micro-frontend, and maybe this solves our problem, and it has been solving. It is solving their problem. So I think the third benefit is also that when you have your business which is growing and when you have a large application, you have more than one team which is working on one portfolio kind of product, let's say, right? So when you have that multiple teams working for their own goal and one common goal, then it is very important that the collaboration, the integration is not a bottleneck every time when they integrate, right? So it's very important that we identify the subdomain, we identify what are the things that we want to develop by each team and how we integrate it, right? So this is where I like to mention this point, okay? And yes, I think we spoke about the fourth point as well.
In the previous page, when you go to the previous page, yeah, when you see this authentication service, you are also putting in front end. What if the user having both back end and front end and same service and defining as a different layer?
No, when I said services, what I also mentioned is that the front end is primarily for the presentation, right? Main scope is that, right?
Then
so
authentication service.
Then have the okay.
Like authentication service, as an example, if you take, you are having these microservices which you are calling through the API. Then same in the front end, what are the things you are providing? Again, you are providing the API, what the detail you are providing?
No, what does front end does? Like maybe I need to understand from your point of view.
Like in the if you see, like any page where you do the shopping or any input and output, when you are providing, that is the front end of your application. And when you call this username and the password, when it go to your backend and it check that, that is the backend side you do that. Okay.
Yeah, so on the front end you have some, a field where you can insert your, username, password. If you are not registered user, then you can register yourself. Maybe you have forward password, maybe something else as well. So things as such which are there. What when I said that when it goes up down here as well, it's mainly the context is very limited, that it is mainly for the authorization.
Yes.
Right? The scope of that is that it communicates only with the auth services through the REST API, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah? So that's the main scope of it. So it's very clear context that it is mainly for the auth.
Yes. But same services you are putting in both the layers, because if you define as a macro services, you define same services in both the layers. Like if you do any designing, like currently in this time in AWS, generally you put all the content in S3 and you put the macro services in this low layer. They are in the public private way. But here if you are putting front end and back end and same services, you are duplicating the services.
No. It's not about the services. The services remains here. Okay. This is the backend thing. Okay. Where the job of this is. That's why I said let's ignore this services thing. The services which I mentioned. Maybe it creates confusion here.
You can name it as Auth UI.
Auth UI, and yeah, I think
Not
sir explained it very well. So.
How is it
car rental UI,
but UI becomes the common UI. Instead of calling auth UI, car rental UI, this, then it should be the common layer of
That is where Micro-Frontend. If it's common, then it is the traditional front-end.
Maybe it clears your confusion when we move on to the few more slides.
So how would this be different from having a page with multiple embeddable components sort of a thing?
Of course, I think I would show, I think what happens is when we have, there is not just one, I spoke about one terminology, one size fits all, right? It's not that, this is the only way to move forward. In development, no one can say that, this is the only way to move forward or this is the best code and this is not the best code. What exactly it means is that when you decide about the microservices, there are different approaches in this in the microservices as well, right? So the way of writing, the way of work, and how you implement them, that makes it more scalable, reliable, maintainable, and it is more good for the future, right? So I think it depends on the approach that you take. Component is there in the single page application, but at the end of the day, maybe when we go through the demo, we also come to know why are we using it, right? Did I answer you?
Yeah. Let's go.
And possibly, so one of the biggest advantages of the microservices in the backend is you can build and release services independently. with the micro-frontend architecture, does the same principle apply? Like, can you build and release components which together comprise maybe a single UI, but individually they might be like your flight services possibly?
Yeah, I'll show it. Show it in the day. So I have the demo. Yes.
We had a concept of web portal, right, previously. So different components will be there in a particular screen.
Yeah, sir. I think from the portal we move to this, single page application, all those things. There are multiple changes that has happened. This is also one of the new change, which I believe would clear maybe your doubt when you look through the demo. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I think the thing is that when we in context of this presentation, and also we are talking about the front end, right, primarily. So I think these are the minimum tech stacks that I could think of. That these things you must know in order to really leverage the new approach of things, right? So I think this is about the tech stacks. What is the usual way? I think we have like website like this where we have the product listing, and then we have the cart. When you select the stuff, and it shows up here, things as such. Then you check out things as such. So usually that your component structure looks like the left, how we see in the left side. So this is the usual approach, very reliable approach. I wouldn't say that we are talking about the replacement. It's a reliable approach. That is how we have been working, and I think this is still functioning approach. When we talk about the micro-frontend approach, I think this is how we can decide. So we have the same requirement. What we do is basically that we have a container node, which basically has this product list and the cart. These are two different micro-frontend, and they communicate to the container. They don't communicate to each others. Otherwise you again couple them. Then you are going away from the microservice logic. So I think the communication happens to this, which we'll see. The same thing, I think I spoke about the domain map, which is a word. Not word, I would say it's one of the very popular term in the domain-driven design. I'm not an expert in the domain-driven design, but yes, this is how when you talk about the domain, you must have the clarity about the subdomains as well, right? So I took an example of the e-commerce, where you see that the subdomains are the below ones, like authorization, products, shopping cart, and the checkout. These are very independent subdomain, logical subdomain to me. So basically, this is how we segregate. This is how we arrive to the subdomain. Yes, I think we spoke about how these things are connected to each other. The team 1 is working on the product listing, team 2 is working on the shopping cart. Then you have the API, which generally talks through this. This communicates to its children, and this is how it functions as a whole. So this is the higher level approach, that this is how this communication takes place from the container to the children, and if children has to pass on any information to another children, let's say. Let's talk about this analogy. I think we all love cars, and especially the luxury cars. So I think the thing is this, I like this quote when I was preparing for this product owner examination, where it was very clearly specified that, the car manufacturers are also a type of consumers, because they consume the components being developed by third party, some other person. They are also one of the customer. Maybe they are the buyer as well, but very clearly they are the consumers of it. They are the very first consumer. So all these components that you see, not necessarily being built by Audi. I think it is built by someone else. But what they do is, they assemble, they create the platform, and this is how your whole product, at the end, you have a one nice luxury car for you. So this is what it is about the Micro-Frontend as well. So I also like to go a little bit more technical on the integration. Definitely, there are like three types of integration. One is that build time integration, runtime integration, and server integration. To be honest, I really don't work or talk too much about this, but these two are very familiar to us. The build time integration is not but what you look at your current development model, you have some library that you import. It's nothing but your package. Let's talk about the React itself. It's the React that you import. What happens is that before your actual application runs, every code of the React is compiled beforehand, right? So that your further components can also compile properly and your wholesome application can run. This is about the build time integration, okay? The runtime integration it's more about the approach that we'll see here. We have independent modules. When they run, at that point of time, it knows that, okay, there is another module. Let's start using it because we have the placeholder for it. So we'll provide the space for it. So I think that's there are some pros and cons of all these approaches as well. But what we are going to focus is on this one. Okay, let's look at the demo. What I have is that, okay, this is the main application as such. What I do is that so I'm gonna open each one of them separately here. So what I have is that these are the four things that let's say the authorization, and we have container, dashboard, and marketing thing. Okay, the container is the main thing. Then authorization is very simple one, like we have a login page. Dashboard is you are able to see this page only if you are authorized. Then we have the marketing thing. Okay, and
increase the size of the font.
yeah. Is this visible now? Is it okay now? Let me check if all of them are running as such. So this you can see that it is running on A082. Okay. This is running on 8084. Okay. And this is on 8.3. So 2, 3, 4. This is what we saw.
So these all are separate applications, right?
Separate applications.
If container is in which technology?
Yeah, I'll show that. So this is the container, okay. So this is the container basically, which is 8084. You can see here that we talk about the container, and container is here, okay, which is running on 8084.
Can you
Okay.
open the port for the container?
Sorry.
Can you open the port for the container?
Yeah, I'll show that. Then we have this 8083. This is primarily the dashboard, okay, which is basically a basic view application, Vue.js application, okay. Then that's the next one. This we have like the marketing. You see 8081. This is what it is. Yeah. And 8082. I'm just searching which one is 8082. This is the 8082. I'm rerunning it. Okay, I think I should have checked it, but here it doesn't run it like that, but here we can clearly see that this is what 8082 is. Okay, so basically, like, you know, when we say this part, I think what we are doing is we are communicating to that other port. We are getting the data from it. So I think this is what being shown here. You can also go to, you know, this kind of stuff where you can do a sign up and things as such. But yes, it's not a real-time application. Just for the demo purpose. What happens is, I spoke about this one as well. This is a Vue.js, okay. So what happens is, like, let's say if we log in here, right? Okay, let's login can't be done like this. Login is a redirection to this sign in page, okay. So let's say we sign in, okay. When we sign in, this is a logout, okay, and this is the URL. All right. So now, if I open this directly like this, you can't. It redirects back to the page which is publicly available, not to the dashboard, because it's a private page as such, right? So it will happen only when you are authorized user, and when you log out, you go back to the public page, which is your main page, okay? So when you click on this, you go back to this page. This is how the flow is about, right? Now the thing is,
The flow is defined in the container.
Hmm?
The flow is defined in the container.
Flow is different than the container.
The container. Now the first page is 8081, right? Login page is 8081.
No, what happens is, it was 8080, okay, the first one.
Okay.
This
You click
Windows,
on login page arrived. That is from where? That is also 8080.
yeah, I'll show it to you again. Okay. That is why I renamed them to have that clear understanding. One is that you see here the container, we spoke about the container. This runs on a 8084.
Okay.
Okay, and what we are accessing is 8084.
Okay.
Okay, and if what container has is just the placeholder for each one of these.
Okay.
Okay, so 8084 does nothing but it provides the placeholder. Obviously it can have its own logic as well, but yes, I think in short, like in the current context, it's just the placeholder which communicates back and forth between different subdomains and shows the view. These are here.
Excuse me. So when you host this on as a cloud service or something,
I'll show that also.
do you have to expose to other pods or it will be redirected to the other?
Yeah, I'll show it here. I think I have the demo here as well. Like, maybe this needs some little bit of stuff. The example that I'm showing, right? It is a production ready approach, but you need to deep dive into code as well, mainly on the Webpack part. Okay, this is how the modules are being shared and told that okay, this is what can be used by the other Webpack, which is running on a different port, things as well. So I'll just give a little bit of walkthrough of that. You see, in general, what happens is that we saw that how the communication can be made back and forth, right? So let me open this container itself. Okay. So what happens is that this is a React. If we look at it, what we do is it's mainly a React component, and what it does is that it has different these apps that it wants to load, okay, into the application, and at the end of the day it wants to provide them a space and how they should start showing up. Okay, so we have certain logics as well in the route. Here, this is on the container front. This uses React. Okay, so if we go to this package.json, I think that gives us much more clear idea about the dependencies that we use here. Okay, I think
open the components for that once. Like I could see in the main React, in React you have imported as components at the end. Can you just go to the top? You imported as components, right? Components that
here.
Can you open any of the components there?
Yeah, sure. You see here, this is the auth app. Okay, this does. Let's look at this. It has very basic logic that what it at the end of what we are doing is that there are different ports. These are run independently, but when we call them to make it more readable, we created this components folder where we told that okay, these are the apps that should all the logic about that particular subdomain should come from this. So this is why this component folder is created.
And then you are fetching that component from that port, 8080 whatever, 8081 what you have, right?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. Just 1 minute.
So container is the single point of failure here. Container is the single point of failure.
If others doesn't run, container is not worried about it as such.
No, if container itself fails,
Yeah,
that is single point of failure.
yeah, that's the main.
And is the baselining done, like all should use React some version or something, like there is nothing I can see, all are independent?
Yeah, I think that I'll show it in this, what do you say, in the Webpack part itself. Okay. So what we have is that, let's look at this dev version of it. Okay. What we have is that we say that we speak about the current, we are looking at the content which has this particular path, okay. Okay, this is a development, okay. What we say that these are the remotes, okay. These remotes are nothing but the actual information that we are providing to the container that these are the actual components for you, okay. And if I quickly navigate or show to you about the another one, this is from the marketing, okay? And if you look at this particular configuration, then what we are saying is we expose only this part to the other app, okay? So when we say we expose about the bootstrap, this is nothing but this file, okay? And this file is being exported, and the export is nothing but this alone.
15 years back we had a concept called portal. That does the same thing. Whether you call anything from EJB, servlet, all the thing will come in a single page, same,
Okay.
same concept. But it comes from a different, but that time it was not called as Micro-Frontend, it's called the portal.
Maybe microservices.
You can search portal, not web portal, portal.
Yeah, portal, I know. I
Yeah.
think very beginning, initial days, I have
Yes.
heard of this. Yeah.
I did not understand one point. So in microservice architecture, right, if one component fails, other components will start working. So you have a single point of failure. So what is the advantage?
Now think about one application, right? Where you have single page application. If that itself fails, then your entire application
Also,
fails.
something is happening. That's what. How are we separating that?
The idea is not to solve that problem.
Okay.
The thing is, when you say that the end goal is to have interactive UI, then you need to have something up and running. The problem is not whether you shut down your server.
This is basically
The problem is how you work independently, right? That's the problem that we are trying to address here. Because see, in the single page application, if you have the server itself which is out of outrest is there in the server, then obviously there is a one point of
Yeah.
failure.
So if the first one is gone container, the other ones will not work. That's what I mean.
If the container itself fails, then what happens?
That is the single point of failure. What do you have for that?
Yeah, so see, the thing is, I give you, from your question only, I give you, maybe we can interact about it. You use very nicely saying container, right? You did not say marketing or auth or let's say dashboard, right? Because you know that there are now 4 different apps running independently. At least you know the problem is with the container. And the job of container also is very clear to you. It is very clear that it has failed. In software world, the problems are common. The problem has occurred. Now the solution about that would be that we make it up and running. Maybe the cloud is the solution that we never have the shutdown. Right? See, that is about the load balancing things as such. Why do we really mix up the micro-frontend concept with that?
No, I'm talking about the front-end part itself, not the back-end.
No, as you said.
It's understood that the container is a single point of failure, but other things can be, so instead of, so if the container go down, yes, everything does go
Next part
down.
I understood.
Yeah.
So,
Not only that, we can host the container in multiple places and by using.
Yeah, we can always do that, right? So see, the thing is what I'm
in one container space, still we have multiple
Yeah.
containers which can.
What we are saying is that at least we know where from a bigger problem we know that this is the main problem.
we are reducing the scope of
Yeah.
where
The main problem could become a focus area of the team who is responsible for making it up and running. So that also means that not everyone is putting their energy into that problem. Others are also able to function for better improvements.
But this is quite similar to the way that WordPress also has, right? Embeddable components, script tags and things like that, right? So, I mean, the idea is the same, essentially.
No, sir.
I think
See, if it's
No,
a
component
component,
No, that is
change it,
different.
you recompile and build the
This
code.
is here, see,
Here
for
it's-
example, trading app if you take, what he is saying is multiple component will be there. So you need feed from multiple services. So in a single point of time, you will have data from multiple points. For example, 10 services you have. In a single page, you will have all the entire 10 services.
Yeah, so that's
So
what I
10
can...
team will be working behind that.
No, so I can use in WordPress, I can put a widget, right? I can put a Twitter widget, I can put a YouTube widget, I can put all those things, right?
Yes, yes, it is the same again. WordPress is
Then you give one
but here the advantage is if container is the single point of failure, he is saying that we know that container is gone. Others are working. So the scope of failure we know it is limited. So we can.
I think segregation, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere it is very clear that where the actual problem is. Now the thing is, I think in interest of time, or if you guys want to continue, that's fine because it's the last session. But yeah, let's look at the other apps also, because what I have done is that I have built one using the React and the other one uses Vue, right? To say that we are not sticking to one famous library or framework, right? So the thing is, if we look at this, I'm just navigating to the marketing app, okay, where you can clearly see that it uses React, okay. Then there is a dashboard that we saw that it appears after the login, right? Okay, so what basically we do is we use Vue here. Okay, we use Vue.js and it's a very basic Vue.js application, and basically we does the same way of exporting the method. Okay, and this is the component that we see in the UI ideally. So it's a Vue.js application which runs inside the container which is built in React.js, and that's how you see this is the Vue.js thing. Okay.
See, we had, let's say React.js, we had Vue.js, other JS, which was made as lightweight, right? Starting from, let's say, what is the lightweight? What we did was only to push on the data and get the triggering point of events. Let's say any events all together. So we made it lightweight, okay, with all the technology. Node.js also works as backend. Nothing works with the front end. So this kind of technologies we have already done. For example, you are also using this. My question is, earlier what I feel is it looks like one any application, one port number we used to use, via this port number we used to get into that. Looks like here you have done 4 or 5 or n number of port for each and every request, whether it's security, whether it's other. Is this the main point of view? It is getting more lighter, or earlier also it was lighter, right? Let's say if you take it React.js or AngularJS, not AngularJS, more things, every component. If you have Node.js, Vue.js, React.js, all are right.
I really, so sorry, maybe I
It's a
did not
comparison.
understand the
Let's say
question.
you have technology, whatever you did. It's also, see, more rendering of content. That's all. And next event, UI event. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is we are making it much more lighter. So my question is, how come these already we are using? What's the benchmark of these two? When you compare your technology, whatever you use as micro. Even though I would say React.js is a micro. Let's say Node.js is a micro.
One second. Consider basically I'm from a logistics. So I have a set of team who are very good at logistics, and I have a set of team who are good at warehouse engineering. So I can deploy a team of people to work on one micro-frontend on inventory part. And I can deploy a set of people who can work on logistics.
Yeah, domain map is divided.
So dividing into one. So I can have multiple micro-frontends like finance micro-frontend, logistics micro-frontend.
That's right. Each and every code here done.
container is one more container, and then it is shown in the front.
The question is like each container is one more code is going to
Correct.
Personal question.
Correct.
Correct. I think many people want to go home. I got one personal request. So I think what I would encourage is please get in touch with me. I would be really happy to help you or answer. If we don't have the solution, we'll find it together. But the answer to you is mostly that it's a segregation that we are talking about. We are not innovating anything new. So that's the main thing that we are talking about.
that's the point. Like every let's say every request, you're going to have one more new code. Looks like that's what you've done, right? What is on the local, right? You use the code only for local mission, or you are going to use the same in when you deploy the solution to production?
Yeah, when I deploy I'll show.
Hello guys, I would request you to please connect with Ashok after this meeting. In the interest of time, we have one last event, one last question.
One last statement actually.
Okay.
So, I mean, in defense of Ashok, so what he was trying to, what he was trying to demonstrate was through micro-frontend, you can deploy disparate type of technologies, websites, disparate type of React.
But that's microservices do the same to spend technology.
Let me come. So I have implemented microservices in the past. This way React is very difficult. I think what he has done, definitely it works. And good presentation.
It's incredible. It's solving for a very difficult issue.
So good tip for you all to go and look at nx.dev. It has very good tooling to implement micro-frontends.
So that is a key point I think that we missed out about the fact that you can use multiple technology. Whenever you talk about, let's say, something like WordPress and all, we are only talking about specific some sort of JS. So that's I think the key thing.
Yes. In the interest of time, I would like to continue for the rest of the slides. Please feel free to connect with me. I think I would be happy to discuss on your concerns or any clarifications that you use. In the real world, how team can work, I think it's quite clear. I think it's a replica. If you just focus on one, they have their own independent dev setup. They don't need not to really concern about the other team dev setup. This is one. The second thing is, I think they can also use different versions, but I think make sure that you're not making it a fantasy. Okay? Let's say someone using React 16 and someone using React 18. That is like a gap. Okay? When you develop something, have that clear decision in mind that which version of the framework or library that you want to use. Definitely we have the support from the Webpack on a multiple versions as well. Okay. The second thing is that they have their own goal and they have a common goal, so they focus on that. They manage the shared packages basically, so they know that what is shared between the different platforms. So they have this shared packages, and they also expose the list. So since that expose, wherever I have mentioned the expose, they are basically not the container. The container is here. Okay. The container is mainly the consumer. Okay. So that need not be exposed. It uses a remote. So to understand that which are the remote, the stuff that it can take. Okay. They can have monorepo. I think Sir spoke about it. I think briefly, but I think on a repo part we don't want to really get into that discussion. But you can have your independent, repo or let's say monorepo, independent CI/CD. Okay. And their own feedback cycle. Okay, the feedback cycle is very important to understand that they are meeting their common goal. Okay, so that's how I think a team can approach in the real world. I think what I would do is, let me know, I'll share this slide with you guys, you can also go through these points. But these are like primarily that, some of the rules that you must keep in mind before you follow this approach. Okay? Which are, I think, not very new, but I think very clear if you just read it out. What I want to focus on is on this part actually. So we know that React is quite popular. Many people gave presentation about React because 3 of us spoke about React. Looks like React is a booming thing. It will become like ever-growing thing. In future also it will rule, but we don't know exactly. 10 years down the line, we don't talk about React, right? This could also become a case. So don't stick to the popular framework library of today, actually. Stick to the one which is in the current context, in the current world. What is meeting the requirement of the need for the customer, be it any framework library, I think that works fine. And that is why I would say that Micro-Frontend is very important, because it provides that kind of segregation to you, right? Otherwise you have to go through the migration or porting, right? This is one of the things that we have been through, right? I think we asked question and answer, but yes. Yeah. Sir, please take chocolate.
Sir, you already asked, so you can claim the chocolate. But different items.
Is it fine if I answer you separately? See, the thing is, what happens in the actual single page application?
Another way I will ask that question. When you choose another route, just load another route
It's like a
and go to marketing, it goes to cost. And if I had previously logged in,
Yeah, so I showed one example where you cannot access a dashboard page without authorization. No, it won't. The thing is, that is the reason. No, it would. You can't access that page directly. That's the logic that has been written. So when certain approaches are already popular, it means that it has evolved to a mature level, right? It has those basic support already to make the communication smooth, right? So this is already possible. I think in the demo it's already shown.
If you are already logged in,
What is the grounding?
if you are already logged into
No, I think I answered similar thing.
I take one last question, Ashok.
Yeah.
One last question.
I think it's
last question.
lot of questions.
Ashok,
Can you share that?
Okay.
last question.
That's all. I think the final slide. Thank you.
Is that okay? Okay.
Anyone who asked a question?
Can I have one short question?
Thank you so much, Ashok, for sharing. Believe me, it's not an easy topic.